What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Shadowlands video. I'm going to keep the mic a little bit further away from me this time. I know I'm screaming into the mic, and I think it's probably way too loud for you guys. So I'm going to keep it here. Let me know if it sounds better, okay? I don't want to be yelling at everybody. I'm just so excited about these builds and all the upcoming content for 9.2. So I hope you're excited, too. I hope you've been following along with all the 9.2 builds that we've been releasing. I hope you got a coffee, kick back and relax. We're going to look at deeply rooted elements today, of course, and we're going to get into some of the gameplay in a minute. I'm going to just talk for a minute about a lot of different things. Let me get my notes together here. Let me put this over here. I'm just going to put Twitch up in case somebody jumps in and starts yelling at me. Okay, notes are here. We are ready to go. Grab your coffee, take a drink. Let's talk first of all about what does deeply rooted elements do. If you've never crafted this legendary, because you've most likely never crafted this legendary. This is probably the most viable candidate for not having been crafted. Number two, is this viable, right? Is deeply rooted elements viable? We're going to talk about that. How do the other builds kind of stack up versus this one? Stat priorities. Does anything change? Talents, tier set, bonus interaction, covenants, which covenant is best to choose with deeply rooted elements moving into 9.2. We're going to demonstrate some of the gameplay, and then, of course, where do you want to craft this legendary? This is the normal format that we're going to go through. So, get excited, and let's get right into what does deeply rooted elements do. So, we've done Skybreakers, right? We've looked at Legacy, Doomwinds, Witch Doctor, Primal Lava Actors. We're all the way down to deeply rooted elements, and it says when you use Storm Strike, you have an 8% chance to activate Ascendance. Ascendance, of course, being this talent down here. Now, they buffed Ascendance in this expansion. It never used to have this on-use effect, but it does now. So as soon as you hit Ascendance, you deal about 7,500 damage in an AoE around you. To all enemies within 8 yards. That's uncapped AoE. Now, obviously, it's not like uncapped. It's not as good as Doomwinds, right? I'll get into that in a second. The reason why this is not quite as good, but it is uncapped AoE when this thing procs, and it does a lot of damage. I'm going to show you really quickly. I've just done about 3 or 4 tests here on it, and you can see this is the Ascendance proc all on its own. It did 10% of my damage, okay? Just the Ascendance proc. And yes, I was using Frost Shock. Don't look at that. Look away. Everybody look away. I wasn't using that. That's I don't know. That's somebody else. Look, here's another one where I wasn't using I mean, I never used Frost Shock. You saw nothing, okay? If you tell anybody that I used Frost Shock, I will find you, and there will be trouble, okay? We'll get to Frost Shock in a minute. Yeah, we'll get to it in a minute. Here's another example. This is about a 3-minute fight as well. 2 minutes, 54 seconds. Again, 7% of my damage. This is just the proc. Just the proc of Ascendance, okay? Just this thing going boom and hitting everybody. So, like, there's something to be said for the amount of damage. This just scales, right? If you had 10 targets, you had 15 targets, this just gets better. Imagine if you had a pack of, like, 15 or 20 guys. Let's say 15 mobs. And you procced for 7,000 damage on each of them. That's 70. That's 105,000 damage for one proc. If you have 15 enemies and this goes off once, it's 105,000 damage without critting. If it goes off twice and there's 15 enemies nearby, it's 210,000 damage. Do you understand how crazy that gets? All of my Crash Lightning damage was 300k. You could do 200k if this procs twice in a huge pack of mobs, in a stack of 15 mobs. This is uncapped AoE. Immediately deals 7,500 nature damage to any enemy. Like, so there's something to be said about just the proc thing the proc chance here that goes off with this legendary. It's not bad at all. There's actually a really interesting interaction there. So let's get into it. Is this actually viable? And I'm just going to come out of the gates right away and say that I don't think it's as viable as most of the other legendaries that we have explored, okay? And there's a very good reason for that, and that is predictability, right? Having a legendary that says when you press Storm Strike, you might activate Ascendance for 6 seconds, it's just It's just a very difficult thing to work with in Mythic Plus. In Raid, it's actually less difficult because you kind of want consistent damage in Raid anyway. And if this is just kind of going off, you're going to have a consistent flow of damage. But in Mythic Plus, you need predictable damage. You need to know that we're going to move in to this next pack of monsters, and I'm going to have my Ascendance button ready to go, and I'm going to press it in the exact moment that I want to press it. I've got Doom Winds ready to go. I'm going to press my Wind Fury Totem exactly when I want to press my Wind Fury Totem, and then I'm going to go. I'm going to do all my damage in this window because there's 15 mobs here right now. What you don't want is to fight 15 mobs and never have this thing go off, never have Deeply Rooted Elements go off at all, and then when there's 1 or 2 mobs left, all of a sudden it goes off twice in a row. And I've had that happen. Now, that is something that can happen, and it doesn't always happen. My experience actually running this in real dungeons, which I have done, there's another video on the channel of me running this on live servers right now, 9.1.5. I ran Deeply Rooted Elements in a dungeon, and what I found over the course of the dungeon is that it procs enough times in the right moments that it sort of evens out in the end. So, like, it ends up procking when you need it to proc enough that it ends up working out really, really well, and it ends up doing enough damage for you. Now, that being said, it still didn't proc lots of times when I wanted it to, and that's sort of unacceptable at the higher end of Mythic Plus. Like, it's just not really viable to sort of play like that to a degree, especially if you're pushing really high keys. I think that you could legitimately take this into some like lower keys, like moving into 9.2. You could do like plus 15s, plus 17s with this. It'll actually do just fine, and it's actually getting better in 9.2, and I'm going to explain why. The viability of Deeply Rooted Elements is going up in 9.2. I'll explain why that is in a second. We're going to get into talents and tier set bonus. That's when we're going to talk about the viability more. But first of all, let's take a pit stop at stat priorities. What's going to change your stat priority? Well, you actually want as much haste as humanly possible with this build. Something like 40% haste is probably okay because it just reduces the cooldown of Stormstrike more. And you're going to see with the Necrolord playstyle, we're going to get like 100% haste, and that's a really good thing. Because all we're really trying to do with this build is trigger Stormbringer. This is what we're trying to do. Your special attacks have a 6.5% chance to reset the remaining cooldown of Stormstrike and increase its damage by 25%. That's what we're trying to do. And so if you have 100% haste, then you can press Stormstrike, Crash Lightning, Chain Lightning, Stormstrike, Crash Lightning, Chain Lightning. You can do this combo in AoE very, very, very quickly. That being said, Mastery is not completely dead on this build. It's not the best stat by any means because the only thing we benefit in terms of Mastery is the chance to trigger Stormbringer. So right now it says increases your chance to trigger Stormbringer and Wind Fury by 1.53%. If we Fleshcraft here, that goes up to 1.8% because we're getting more Mastery. So you can see that getting more Mastery doesn't increase the chance to get Stormbringer by that much, right? It's not that much. Going from 1.5% to 2% or 1.5% to 1.8%, it's just not really that impactful. All the other damage that we get from this, Fire, Frost, and Nature damage, sure, we're pressing other buttons. And don't get me wrong, Mastery is just, generally speaking, Mastery is just better moving into 9.2 because Lava Lash spreads Flame Shock. I'm going to say this over and over again till I die. Because of all this passive damage that we're getting for free, Mastery just immediately gets more value because it buffs our fire damage. And we're going to have ticking fire damage all the time. On the live builds, you're not even pressing Flame Shock as much if you're doing a Stormstrike focused build. Like, you're only pressing it onto like 1, maybe 2 targets if you're playing really well in like a cleave scenario because you don't have time. You're doing so many other things. You're busy. And now because of the free spreading of Flame Shock, you press Flame Shock once on pull, and then you just keep refreshing them all with Lava Lash, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane. It provides so much extra free damage. Look at this. Flame Shock's my top damage on this one. That's probably not a good thing, but the point is, the damage is there. You can see Flame Shock's 10% of my damage. Every single build is getting 10% more Flame Shock damage. Look at 11% here, 10% here. That was the No, these were different tests here. So you can see, like, that's just what all these builds are getting. They all get the free damage. So that makes mastery, in my opinion, automatically just a better stat right now. It's just going to be better for you in general because there's so much extra. We're utilizing so much extra mastery, excuse me, with all the flame shocks. Okay, but you can legitimately go crit. That's nothing wrong with that. Crit is fine with this build. You just want a ton of haste is really what you're looking for. Okay, let's move into talents. Oops, I'm on Hailstorm. Whoops, I didn't mean that. You didn't see that. Nobody saw that. There is no Hailstorm, okay? It's not even a thing. Don't look at me. Here's what's interesting about the talent tree. You kind of want passive damage as much as possible because you're trying to press Storm Strike as much as possible. You want to press this button over and over and over and over again so you can trigger the Ascendance proc, okay? That's what you're fishing for. You're fishing for those procs. Now, Elemental Assault is very, very good. And this is obviously what you're going to take in single target. But if you take this in AoE, you're losing so much AoE, it's not even funny. It's just really bad. So you have to take one of these two for AoE, and you have to take LE Assault for single target, in my opinion. LE Assault's just really good because it gets you back to Storm Strike more quickly, right? You press Storm Strike, it might have a chance to trigger twice with Storm Flurry, and both of those triggers will give you at least one stack of Maelstrom Weapon. You can press Storm Strike once, and it might get you back to Storm Strike, like, for free. So LE Assault is kind of insane for this build because you want to get back to Storm Strike as much as possible. But the AoE components here cannot be denied. You cannot overlook these. They're so good. So I'm suggesting you go Forceful Winds. You obviously don't ever want to go Lashing Flames. We're not touching Lava Lash except to refresh Flame Shocks. LE Blast is like one too many buttons to have to press, in my opinion. So just go Forceful Winds. Just do that. You get passive damage for free. You have to go Storm Flurry. And you kind of have to go LE Assault for single target. And then we're going to go Dogs and Sundering, of course. The Dogs because of the tier set bonus, and I'll get to that in a second. But this middle row is really up for grabs, guys. You need to play around with this. I am going to show you the Hailstorm version of this, much against my better judgment. Hailstorm? No, don't get me wrong. Hailstorm is really good. Frost Shock is really good. I know it's really good. It's just not a playstyle that I super enjoy, right? And you guys know that by now. But you can get away with Fire Nova as well because, again, we're spreading Flame Shocks for free. There's so many free Flame Shocks just kicking around. You can get lots of damage out of Fire Nova. I think I have it here, right, on this one. You can see Fire Nova doing 10% of our damage on this one, and I flipped over to Frost Shock, and it's also doing 11% of our damage as well. So they're basically the same. I don't think there's much of a difference here. It's just like a playstyle thing. There is going to be a difference in the conduits that you want to run. Of course, if you're going to run the Hailstorm, you need to flip into Chilled to the Core. You really do for this build because you want to get those Maelstrom weapon stacks. Now, that means you're going to drop Unruly Winds, which is a little bit of a... it's a little annoying, but I'll show you the difference here. So we've got this one where I have Unruly Winds, Conduit, and I'm doing 8.3% Wind Fury damage. And here I don't have Unruly Winds, and we're doing a little bit less, right? That makes total sense to me. About 2% less Wind Fury damage. But Frost Shock has a chance to generate stacks of Maelstrom Weapon, which gets you back to Storm Strike. I think it's worth it to do this Frost Shock build and to flip Conduits that way. So this is the setup that I would run. I am, of course, Necrolord. I'm going to explain the Covenant choices a little bit later. So we'll get back into that. But I just wanted to make a quick mention of Frost Shock, Chilled to the Core, etc. That if you're going to run the Hailstorm build, you sort of have to run that Conduit, okay? Now, let's flip one more time into the tier set bonus. So this is your setup for talents. If you're running the Frost Shock, Hailstorm, Conduit, then you're going to run Hailstorm, of course. If you're not going to do that, just run Fire Nova and just trigger it whenever you can, right? So I think I like the Fire Nova style better, but I think the Hailstorm build might be better. Let's take a look at that in a minute. Here's your talent setup. And the last talent, of course, Elemental Spirits, goes right into our tier set bonus, which let's talk about it right now. I'm already done my coffee. Oh, no. So, spending Maelstrom Weapon has a 3% chance per stack to summon a Feral Spirit. And then your Feral Spirit's attacks have a 20% chance to trigger Stormbringer. Boom. That is the one that we are interested in. A lot of the fire builds are mostly interested in the 2-piece bonus, right? They just want to get extra dogs out there to get the fire buff. We care about the 4-piece bonus. I mean, both of these bonuses are really great for this build, for deeply rooted elements, but the 4-piece bonus in particular is insane. Feral Spirits attacks have a chance to give you Stormbringer. That's really, really good because we want to be pressing Stormstrike as much as humanly possible. That is what we want to be doing. So, there is that's the tier set bonus, and it's gonna sync up really well with Necrolord. And I'm gonna get into the Covenants. Actually, I think right now is probably fine. I'll just show you the interaction. So, obviously, the 4-piece bonus works really well with Night Fae because you can summon your wolves, and then you can Fey Transfusion, and then you can summon your wolves again. And hey, Fluct, how's it going, buddy? You can summon your wolves, and then you do Fey Transfusion, and then you're going to summon your wolves again, a second time, right? And if you have all those wolves out, the 4-piece bonus has a really high chance to get Stormbringer. However, that's only like every 1.5 minutes or so that you can do that combo. Which means it's okay. It's just that also your wolves might get desynced with Fey Transfusion. You're going to do wolves into Fey Transfusion into wolves, and then the next time you go to do Fey Transfusion, you might waste some of the cooldown reduction that you're getting on your wolves. So, like, it's just a little bit difficult to manage that, in my opinion, without having Witch Doctor Wolfbones, which is able to manage it very easily. With Witch Doctor Wolfbones, you can always have the wolves cooldown come back before you press Fey Transfusion, basically all the time, which means it's exactly how you want to be casting it. With this build, we're not reducing the cooldown of wolves at all, so we have to like really manage the Fey Transfusion wolf combination, so it can be a lot more difficult. That's why I'm pivoting over to Necrolord. I think that the benefit of Necrolord is to say, okay, I'm going to give you a huge haste window, and we're going to put your wolves into that haste window, and then they're going to have a higher chance to give you the Stormbringer proc, and you're just going to be pressing Stormstrike back to back to back to back, and you're going to see us do that in a minute, okay? That is exactly how you want to do that. Every time you've got your wolves up, you can shove the haste window into the wolves, and then their attacks will have a higher chance to trigger Stormbringer, which is great. Gets you Stormstrike back, gets you more chances to trigger Ascendance. That's really what we're looking for. This is all about just trying to press Stormstrike as much as humanly possible. So I'm going to give honorable mention to the other two. I think that Kyrian is just like not a good one here because oh, that's okay. Thanks, Flock. The other Covenant. So Kyrian is kind of like it's just not good because you don't have time to press the Kyrian Totem into 3 damaging abilities. You have time to do that, but you don't have time to press like Earth Shield 3 times in a row, right? To trigger the healing side of the Kyrian Totem so that it'll trigger a second time, right? When 3 charges of the Vesper Totem goes off, that's your 3 damaging abilities, and then you can do 3 more charges, that's your healing abilities. So you can get this to proc twice, but it's like, it's so much extra work to get this to proc, and you really just want to be pressing Stormstrike with this build. You don't have time to press like a healing spell, okay? So that's not really good. Venthyr is just more passive damage. It's not bad at all. This is what I try and say in all the videos that don't use Chain Harvest, but this is good. It'll shore up some of your damage that you're maybe not doing when you're not proccing your Ascendance, just because you get passive Flame Shock damage, and then you get the Chain Harvest cooldown coming back very quickly. It's all good stuff, and it's just passive, and there's no synergies. And again, I'm always trying to look for what synergizes with the legendary that I'm trying to equip, right? So passive damage, not very good. Night Fae gives you crit and reduces the cooldown of your dogs. It's good. It's definitely an option here. It's just that lining up the dogs and the Fey Transfusion cooldown every single time is going to be difficult. And on top of that, it only gives you like 1 really powerful window where you have 4 dogs out, all triggering Stormbringer. So in a sense, this could be like almost like a Doom Winds window, like every 1.5 minutes. Instead of every minute, it's every 1.5 minutes, where you go dogs into Fey Transfusion into dogs, and then you go and you try and get your Ascendance proc. And it's like every 1.5 minutes you have a really big cooldown like that. And that's an interesting idea, interesting way to play it. I'm not saying that that's wrong necessarily. I just don't think it's going to be maybe as consistent as the Necrolord one, and that's the one that I want to show you today because of the haste that you're going to get. So those are the Covenants kind of wrapped up. I'm going to flip back to the Soulbinds like I said I was going to earlier. This is the setup that I would want to run if I was going Necrolord. Again, you get a little bit of mastery from Plague Divisor, and then you get 3 potency conduits. You have to run Tumbling Waves, 100%. We're going to run Chilled to the Core, because we're going to do the Frost Shock build, and then you have to run Focus Lightning, because it got buffed so heavily in this patch. On top of that, you can go anywhere else that you want to go here. This is just extra damage on top, extra damage on the bottom with Kevin Zeusling, and then that's it. It's really good. It makes your Fleshcraft really, really powerful in any of the two, particularly in Plaguefall, where all the slimes that you kill, you can Fleshcraft near them, and then you can take the slime buff with you. I don't know if you've seen some of the higher end Mythic Plus guys. They will drag a slime into boss fights, and then everybody like stands on top of the red slime to get the haste buff. You don't have to do that with Plague Divisor Marileth. You can just Fleshcraft near the slime, and you can bring the benefit with you. I think that anybody can actually do that. I think Fleshcraft works like that for anything, right? I'm not actually sure. Fleshcraft passive effect consumes a corpse. This is complete. Yeah, I don't know. So you have to pick Plague Divisor Marileth to do this. You do. So with normal Fleshcraft, if you walk past a corpse of an enemy, it'll reduce its cooldown by like a second. Now with Plague Divisor Marileth, if you walk past a corpse that's there, it'll also give you a benefit based on the creature type. And in Plaguefall, there are certain creatures that give you massive benefits, like the 25% haste. There's like a purple slime that reduces your damage taken. There's a green slime that adds nature damage to your attack. So it's really, really good for those dungeons. So that's why I like Plague Divisor quite a bit, actually. So that is those are the covenants. And then if I'm gonna suggest you go Necrolord, and this is the setup you're gonna want to run, of course. And I just think the other covenants, you know, I do think there's a place for Night Fae, as I was saying. I just think these other two aren't going to work very well for you. If you're really trying to get as many Stormstrike casts as possible, you want a lot of haste. So we're going to show that. Let me get rid of his nameplate there. Now we're going to do the demonstration. So you are going to obviously have your buffs out. Nothing changes in terms of your opener. It's always going to be the same, basically. You want to throw down your Wind Fury Totem. And then you do want to make sure you have Fleshcraft on, because that's going to give us Mastery, which gives us a better chance to trigger Stormbringer and increases all of our fire damage and lightning damage and all that jazz, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go Flame Shock into Lava Lash, of course. We're going to build up Flame Shocks on all these targets. Then we're going to press our Lightning Bolt into Wolves, okay? Actually, we're going to go Wolves first into Lightning Bolt and get the haste rolling, okay? Everybody ready for this? So we go Flame Shock, Lava Lash. So we're gonna go over there. We gotta reset. This is good. Oh, I messed it up. Here we go. We're gonna go Wolves into Lightning Bolt, and we go. Trying to get Stormstrike procs. Stormstrike, Stormstrike, Stormstrike. More haste. We're trying to get into Sentence proc, right? Of course. And again, you're going to get unlucky here, and you might not get any procs. And we've seen this in another video, which is unfortunate, but it's just the way it goes. Okay, we got another proc. Here we go. Lightning Bolt, and go. More haste. See, our haste is at 89%. We're just going to keep going until we get a proc here, just to show you guys the effect, of course. I'm actually going to get hit by this guy once, just to make sure I'm actually in combat. Tumbling Waves, here we go. More haste. Oh, I wasn't even using Frost Shock. Oh my god, I need to redo this test. Okay, we're going to redo this. I forgot I had the Hailstorm buff going. Okay, my bad, my bad. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Look, guys, Frost Shock doesn't do any damage. See? I keep telling you guys. Frost Shock's bad. Look how much damage it did. It's a bad spell. I was wondering, I was like, where's my AoE damage? This is why you take this. So, of course, we're taking this. We don't have Ellie Assault, but I just think, guys, Frost Shock's pretty bad. I think it's pretty clear if you look at this evidence right here. I don't know what to tell you, guys. It's just bad. It's just Hailstorm's just bad. So, it's evidence. I'm just showing you the evidence. I'm just trying to show you what's here in front of me. That's all I can do, right? I don't know. Okay, we're going to try this again. That was pretty bad. Guys, somebody tell me I have Frost Shock on my bar. Somebody remind me, please. Okay, we're ready? Everybody ready? Here we go. The other cool thing about this, before I start, this is why this actually works really well now, is that Flame Shock and Frost Shock no longer share a cooldown, which is insane. It's such a quality of life to this build. So here we go. Flame Shock, spread it around. Get the Sundering out there. Let's go over here. Okay. Wolves into Lightning Bolt, and we go. Frost Shock. I got it. I got it this time. Don't worry. Frost Shock. Storm Strike when it comes off cooldown. Do this again. Spread this for a second, and then we go in. Go, 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 go. We're just waiting for a proc, which, of course, we're not going to get one. All the testing I do, we get a bunch of procs, and then it never happens on live. That's just the way it goes. Make sure you spread your Flame Shocks over there. All the passive damage we're getting from Flame Shocks is really good. I know I'm messing up the Frost Shock gameplay. It's okay. You guys don't have to remind me. It's just, again, it's not something that I'm used to playing as much. We're waiting for our Primordial Wave to come back. And but in the meantime, we're just filling with the Chain Lightning Frost Shock combos, of course. So here it comes. We go Tumbling Waves into this. We get a big haste buff. I need one proc, one time, guys. Come on, give it to me. Man, sometimes it just feels like it just completely bugs out, and I don't know why. Like, I was doing this before, and of course I got like 6 procs in a 3-minute period, which is like every 30 seconds, right? And of course I've gotten not a single proc here. Spread this around. We're gonna try it again. We're gonna keep going here. So the dogs being up, of course, gives you so many procs on Stormbringer. Storm Strike, of course, which is awesome. Haste, big haste, big haste. We're going here. If this doesn't work in the next couple seconds, we're just going to relog because we didn't get a single proc. And I think that it just bugs out, and it's really sad. But you can see the damage is actually like okay, even without us getting a single proc on it. But let's just log out for a sec and try to get a sort of a reset, get the game to remember that this is a thing. There's this weird thing that happens with combat where when you're doing combat on these dummies, I think because they're neutral dummies, they just don't like get you in combat. I know I'm in combat, but what I'm saying is like there's nothing hitting me. In a dungeon, there's like enemies that are red and they're like hitting you, and it's just for some reason it just feels different. I don't know why, but we're just gonna give this a reset and see if it works, hopefully. But this is obviously the problem with this legendary. As I described in the outset, this is the problem with this legendary, is that sometimes it literally just doesn't proc, and you just feel really bad. And I think that this is abnormally low right now, but we're going to give it another shot. Get your totem out. We're going to start, obviously, Flame Shock, Lava Lash, and we're going to go here. We'll get our wolves up in a second. Get another over here. Get that going. Wolves into Lightning Bolt, and we go. There we go. We got a proc. See that? It's working. It's working. It's alive. So hopefully, you see all the procs we're getting on Storm Strike. I keep saying Stormbringer. It's gonna drive everybody crazy. Try not to let your Flame Shocks fall off. That's definitely difficult to pull off with this build because you're focused on other things, like 15 other things. So that is the problem with Frost Shock, in my view, is that I'm really bad at tracking when I've got it up and when I've got other things going. You have to keep your Flame Shocks going, of course. You have to keep your Flame Shocks going. You have to keep your Frost Shock going. Tumbling Waves, like there's just all these buffs you're keeping rolling. Here's a big haste window, 103% haste right now. You can see the Frost Shock helps us get back to Chain Lightning, which is really good. We're going to go here. Lightning Bolt. Another one. Big haste, 103% haste. You can see that the Necrolord playstyle really just works even on its own, even though we're getting absolutely garbage procs from our legendary. Hopefully we can get a few more in a minute here. The haste just feels really good. Just feels really good. Yeah, so here you go. We'll try Primordial Wave one more time. You can see essentially the large weakness of this build, which is that it just doesn't proc. You know? There we go. We finally got one. We'll see if we can keep this going. More haste. We're getting awesome resets here on Primordial Wave. This is what you want, obviously. Getting huge haste. Here we go. Big haste again. Big haste. And we're going. Big haste again. See how fast you can keep going? Like, it's just crazy. It's awesome. But this legendary is just not proccing, and that's just an unfortunate reality. We're still doing, like, okay damage, which is kind of insane, but it's just not going to proc for us. And it's just the reality we have to face, unfortunately, with this legendary. That I think that there's really a good way for them to fix this legendary, and I would basically say to them that it should read the way that it does right now, to say that you have an 8% chance to proc this ability, which is to proc a sentence. On top of that, it should say, oh, we got another proc right there. On top of the 8% chance to proc a sentence just from Stormstrike, it should say you every 30 or let's say every 40 seconds, your next Stormstrike automatically procs a sentence for like 5 seconds, right? That would make it more consistent. That's what this thing lacks. It lacks consistency. I don't mind fishing for a proc all the time if I know that I'm going to get a consistent proc eventually. Does that make sense? So, like, we'll look at that was a really long fight, a good test to show this. Frost Shock damage is, of course, terrible, as you guys keep telling me. I don't know why you keep telling me to take this ability. Frost Shock is clearly not good. Look at it. Look at it. It's not even on the DPS meters. All right, it's good. Okay? Jeepers. But let's look at how many times the sentence procced. 3 times in a 4-minute fight. So that's less than a minute. Or that's more than every minute. It's like a minute and 25 seconds, right? A minute and 20 seconds, sorry. Yeah, it procced 3 times. So that's, yeah, every 1 minute and 20 seconds it was proccing, which sounds kind of good, except that on these other pulls that I was doing, it procced like once every, what was it on this one? Is it this one? I think it procs 6 times here. Yeah, 6 times in a 3-minute period. So this is proccing once every 30 seconds. And in this one, it procced once every minute and 20 seconds. So do you see the massive difference there? Like, you can get these big troughs of, like, you can get a pull where everybody pulls 15 guys together and you're just really hoping it's going to proc, and it doesn't. And you're, like, super sad. So that's the problem with this legendary. They need to make it where it says, okay, using Stormstrike has an 8% chance to activate a sentence, and every 45 seconds, your next Stormstrike will activate a sentence for 6 seconds. Just give it that small guarantee so that there's a slight consistency to it. So it's not just like absolute mountains and valleys, right? You want it to have some mountains and some valleys, and then also have a little bit of consistency in the middle so that it's not completely annoying to play with, like I'm experiencing here. So the bottom line is, it's just not viable in a sense because it doesn't have that consistency, right? All of the fire builds have a straight flat line of consistency. Primal Lava Actuators is always getting your Lava Lash back all the time. It's coming back. Skybreakers is always getting Chain Harvest back all the time. You know it's coming back. All the Flame Shocks are doing tons of consistent damage over and over and over again, right? Witch Doctor Wolfbones is always bringing back your wolves, like, all the time. Your wolves are like a 20-second cooldown, and so you're going to get them back, and you know when they're coming back. It's predictable. You know when it's coming. Doomwinds has a predictable 1-minute cooldown. Boom. Here comes the next pack. I'm going to drop my Wind Fury Totem, and I'm going to go crazy. That's what makes all these so much better, is that you know how to predict your damage. Even Legacy of the Frost Witch has a predictable stream, right? You spend Chain Lightning, you get your Storm Strike back. You spend Lightning Bolt, you get your Storm Strike back. You just keep going off of that, right? Deeply Rooted is just, it needs a small amount of predictability, just a tiny bit. Something like every 45 seconds, your next Storm Strike activates a sentence, so that you're getting a small guarantee on this legendary. Otherwise, it's just going to be what we just saw, where I'm spending 4 minutes trying to get this stupid thing to proc, and it just won't proc. It's like every 1 minute and 20 seconds it's procking. It's like, well, then my legendary effect just feels bad. It just feels really bad. So this is really the unfortunate problem with this build. Is it going to be viable in 9.2? It's going to be more viable in 9.2 than it is even right now. But that still doesn't bring it, I don't think, close to these other ones. A lot of these other builds that you might want to try. So that's really unfortunate. And it's I just wish it was better, but that's just the bottom line. Unfortunately, this is sort of where we're at with this legendary. I think Blizzard needs to make some big changes to it. Just make that, even just a small change, which is to say, give it that small amount of predictability, right? Where are you going to craft this thing? Of course, it's going to be on your wrists, because the only other place, you got head, shoulder, wrist. Your head and your shoulder are tier set pieces, so not possible there. You want to put it on your wrist if you're crazy enough to make this thing. Don't get me wrong, it's fun. Like, the actual build itself is a lot of fun. And it does actually have uncapped AoE, which is kind of insane, but you do need to get this thing to trigger. If Ascendance triggers enough in a big pack of like 15 guys, it's going to do a lot of damage. Even just the triggering effect will do tons of damage. So it's good. It's good for that kind of thing, but you have to get it to trigger, and that's just like, sometimes it's just so incredibly hard to do that. But bottom line is, if you want to make it, put it on your wrist, because that'll get it out of the way of the tier set gear. So final thoughts, guys. I think that I think it could be good in 9.2, but in reality, you're not going to want to start 9.2 with this build. Maybe like later down the road, if they make some changes to it, which they won't, but if they did, if anybody's listening, please make it so that you get your next, every 45 seconds, your next Storm Strike will automatically trigger, or every minute, make it every minute, your next Storm Strike will automatically trigger a sentence. That would give it some predictability, which is kind of cool. But if you're going into 9.2, you really should start with a lot of these other builds. They're going to be better for you. Deeply Rooted is just a little bit too far down the tier list for me. But if you do want to play it, I'd suggest put it on your wrist. Go Necrolord. You get all these cool haste buff windows, which is awesome. The haste buff from Primordial Wave just feels so much better now because you're spreading those free Flame Shocks. It's so much easier to spread Flame Shocks. I was literally trying this build the other day, I think yesterday, in a Mythic Plus, and it's just so much more difficult. You got to really work for your bread, you got to, like, press a Flame Shock here, and then Lava Lash, do something else, press a Flame Shock here, then Primordial Wave over there, and then press Lightning Bolt, and it's like all this extra work. And in 9.2, you're just going to run in, you're going to press Lava Lash once on your Flame Shock target, and then blap, you're ready to go. So it's certainly going to get a lot better in 9.2, and I'll be excited for the Necrolord gameplay. But that is Deeply Rooted Elements, guys. Yeah, a little bit behind the curve. Definitely want to craft probably one of the other legendaries starting out in your 9.2 journey. So that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for the subscriptions, for all the likes, and all the comments in the comment section there. What are we at right now? We are at almost 600 subs, right? 585. Let's get to 600 before the end of the month. I mean, that's actually very possible now. I didn't even think I was going to get past 500 by the end of the month. I think I started under 500 this month. So you guys are like really helping me out. I really appreciate the subscriptions. If you're not subscribed, get down there and hit that button. I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for the support. And we're going to do some elemental builds now. In the next couple of videos, I'm going to flip into the elemental builds in 9.2. What are they looking like? Because we have talked about elemental quite a bit on this channel as well. I'm going to do a couple videos on elemental builds moving into 9.2. What do you want to, all the covenant choices and all that jazz. So get ready for that. Thanks again. I'll catch you guys in the next one.